acompaña Lukasz Stachowiak, Regional Director from Bolt. Lukasz, hello. Thank you so much for attending us.
Thank you so much for having me, Raquel.
So we want to talk with you about the past, the present and the future of mobility. We want to know the Bolt vision about it. And first of all, I want to ask you about the past and the changes that has been made in recent years. How do you see these last trends?
So whenever we look on the mobility itself, we can say that there are two main trends actually that shaped it until now. First is modernism, and the second one is motorism. Modernism, not in terms of like the paintings in Picasso, it's more about how the cities have been built, because the mobility actually starts with cities. So the cities have been very well architectured in terms of like the areas of living, areas where the government has own buildings, where we have the like the office places and so on, but really often they are related to the long distance traveling in terms of like how we get basically from our homes to work, to our offices and so on. So based on this one, what we see that in the cities there are two main things. First is a lot of congestions, right? So there's a lot of time that we spend in the traffic, and that actually also is impacting people in terms of like how they feel and their well-being. And the second, in terms of like the way the cities are designed for cars, right? And even with the example of the parking spaces for the cities, it can be up to the 50% of the city space that are dedicated for parking, right? So the way we've been designing the cities so far was more focusing basically on the building the city as a machine that be working with the different coches, like the ones where we have the place of living, place of work, but not necessarily from the perspective of well-being of the people, right? And the second trend, what I said, is motorism. Motorism in regards of penetration of the cars amongst the households. So especially in Europe, majority of the households have own car, and they are owning the car. And the more households we have, the more cars we have on the streets. And then it's a kind of like a circle, right? Because the cities are prepared in the way that we have to travel. We have a lot of cars, so there is more congestion, there is more time that we are spending in the traffic, and also there is more parking spaces needed to be built, again, not for people but for cars. So this is how I see the main trends in terms of the past of how the mobility was shaped.
Some of these trends are changing, no? For example, I'm thinking millennials don't own as much as car as their parents. It's just an example, but how do you see the present time, what is changing, and what are the main trends that we're looking for?
So, you know, Raquel, I see basically three main trends actually that are shaping the mobility right now. First is the multimodality. So what does that mean exactly? Is that people are looking for the convenience of switching from one mean of transport to another. You are going on an electric scooter, later you may go with the electric bike, you can take a ride-hailing taxi cab, and you can also take the car sharing. So you can like rent a car with your phone, and then you can get from one place A to B through those different models, and also, of course, public transport. So multimodality is the first one. The second one, related actually to the change, is the increasing utilization of a single car. And so what does that mean? Is basically that the single car is driving more. But why? Because the services like ride-hailing platforms are occurring, and creates this opportunity for people in the very easy way to take a taxi with their phone and move in the comfortable way from point A to point B, right? Rather than having own car and keeping the car on the parking space for the 80% of the time without the use, right? So in that case, the usage of the car is increasing. Also in terms of the car sharing. So we as Bolt recently launched also the car sharing business with Estonia, where is our headquarters, where people start to come again with their phones, open the car, and can move from point A to point B. So we are constantly working on increasing the utilization of the cars, while actually removing the ownership of those cars from people. It's kind of the pay-as-you-use model, as you just mentioned. And there is a third element, which we can call it outsourcing of delivery. In the past, we have those kind of the huge shopping malls with big parking spaces in front of it. Wherever now, what we see, and also where we are participating in this trend as Bolt, we have the food delivery businesses, right? Where the food is being delivered to us. So again, we spend more time in the car commuting. There is a grocery delivery. Again, we don't have to do the grocery ourselves in the store, so we are commuting less. And the third, also the e-commerce, in terms of the explosion of the e-commerce opportunities, the huge e-commerce platforms that are enabling us to order practically everything online and have that delivered. So those are the three trends that are placed in the mobility that are going actually to shape the future. Multimodality, then increased utilization of the car because of the pay-as-you-use type of models, and then outsourcing of delivery to the services platform like ours.
A big role of technology as well in all these processes. You just give us some clues about how Bolt is seeing the mobility of the future, but what other role do you see for Bolt in this new mobility?
So our mission basically is to make cities for people, not for cars. So whatever we do, it's exactly like surrounded around this mission that we have. And what does that mean? How we are actually realizing that? So first, it starts with we call them like the rental vehicles. So electric scooters and electric bikes, where you can get with your phone to those scooters, to those bikes, and you can rent them on the spot, and then you can move from point A to point B with their usage. Typically, bikes and scooters are up to like 4 kilometer, 5 kilometer distance. But then what is happening with the longer distances, because we need to have also a solution for that. And with this, we have our ride-hailing business, where we are looking for the trips up to like the 13 kilometers, 15 kilometers, depending on the city, where we are offering this taxi ride-hailing services as the complementary service in regards to mobility for people. And last but not least is the car sharing business that we are just launching, and we launched in Estonia already, where those are all trips typically 10 kilometers and longer, where we are actually covering with the spectrum, right? So first we are securing mobility in regards of enabling moving from point A to point B. And then there is a second part in terms of delivery. I mentioned to you in the with the previous question about the trend of like outsourcing delivery, and we are also present there. So what we do first is that we have we call it Bolt Food business, where we are delivering the food from the restaurants to homes of our users. And now we have also Bolt Market. It's a concept of stores that you do not visit yourself, but you have it accessible with your phone. You can collect your basket of groceries that you need for your family, order it, and then having it delivered in 15 minutes to your doorstep. So all of that, again, is fulfilling those main trends that I mentioned before in terms of how we are moving the cities from cities for cars, as unfortunately we have right now, to cities for people, where people can spend more time with each other, take care about their well-being, instead of spending the time in the vehicle, driving and getting nervous or stressed in the congested areas of the cities.
That would be great. So Lukasz, thank you so much for attending us. Thank you so much for being with us in this Global Mobility Call in Madrid.
Thank you so much, Raquel. Thank you for having me.
Bueno, pues tenemos la visión de movilidad de Bolt, como nos contaba Lukasz, poner a los ciudadanos en el centro y no tanto a los coches, cambiar la estructura de cómo hacemos esa movilidad para una de las compañías que se está haciendo más popular en nuestras calles. Vamos a dejar un momento este Global Mobility Call, vamos a volver al plató porque ya está preparado Fernando La Tienda con Ponte en Acción para repasar lo que está sucediendo en esta importante jornada también para la economía y los mercados.